It's always fun to see a watch from Monta. I remember when Monta announced its first watch all those many years ago, way back in 2016. What a time to be alive. You youngins, you don't know. And the first Monta watch was the Oceanking. A lot of the world has changed since 2016, I guess, and a lot has changed about the Oceanking since then too. But there's something that hasn't changed since 2016, and it's not the fact that I still cannot seem to get dust off of a watch that I'm filming. I can't do it. No, it's that for a small brand, Monta, it has fans, like dedicated supporters, it seems. And the fans are critical. They're not always happy about what Monta does, which is great. But Monta is a watchmaker that a lot of people really want to see succeed. Maybe it's only with Americans, I don't know. The watches are made in Switzerland, but Monta is located in Missouri, which is basically in the dead center of this great and confusing nation. And there's also the fact that there's this interesting dichotomy between people who have had their hands on a watch from Monta and those who haven't. A noticeable difference, and that's something that a video like this just won't get across, how a watch feels when you try it on or just play with it. I think that difference between people who have tried on a watch from Monta and those who haven't, I think that's more pronounced with this watch because at first glance, the design of this watch it's not unusual or exceptional, and some people will find it uninteresting and some people blow up my DMs because they're so into how this looks. It's weird. It's almost like the design of a watch is subjective and can be good for one person and bad for another, but it can't be true. Otherwise, why would people argue about these things? At least we know that the dimensions of a watch are objective, probably. Heisenberg might disagree, but Heisenberg doesn't have a YouTube channel, at least not an observable one. The Oceanking is 40.5 millimeters across, 12 millimeters thick, and 48 millimeters long. It has 20 millimeter lugs and is water resistant to 300 meters. The Oceanking lists for $2,550. Inside the Oceanking is the Sellita SW300 with 56 hours of power reserve and a date. Monta calls this movement the M22, I'm not sure why. Probably it has an engraved rotor weight like the Monta Noble does, but the case back on the Oceanking is solid. I wish it wasn't, but it do. Monta is very proud of the comfort of its watches. It refers to its bracelets as the most comfortable watch bracelets in the world. And I guess I don't really know how to evaluate that claim, some sort of double-blind study, but I do know that the bracelet and the watch are very comfortable on my 7-inch wrist. Now again, Heisenberg would probably say that now that we know the circumference of my 7-inch wrist, we can't know its location, to which I would reply, here. My wrist is here. That's a location. I'm not a smart man, but I know where my wrist is. Take that, science. 40 millimeters-ish and 12 millimeters thick, I can't argue with these dimensions. This will work on a lot of wrist sizes regardless of their location. Monta lists the length of the case at 48 millimeters, and some reviews say that it's 47.5, whatever. It's fine, it's great. And there are a few things that make this really comfortable. First, maybe it's that the links are fully articulate, meaning that they're very eloquent as public speakers. No, it means that the links rotate and fully pivot. A lot of bracelets just don't do this. More importantly, the links are finished with comfort in mind, I think. The underside of the links have smooth fillets on their edges, which all feels very silky and smooth, like your hair after using conditioner from a fancy hotel. And then there's the bracelet adjustment system in the clasp. This reminds me of the original Rolex glide lock system. Pop it out, slide it, pop it back in. That sounded dirty, but it works. It's good. It's not great, but it's good. I wish it was spring-loaded for easier setting. Like I said, the bracelet is really nicely finished, and the case is also nicely finished with big polished chamfers running along the outside of the lugs. There's an elegance with Monta watches that will appeal to a lot of people. There are a lot of watches in what I call this low luxury price range, but not a lot of them, or not most of them, look like luxury watches, and Monta watches do. Even the box this watch comes in is nice for the price, much better than a Rolex box, but that's a weirdly low bar still. Now the rest of the design. This is the 3rd generation Monta Oceanking, and it really works for some people and it really bothers others. What bothers some people is that the watch looks more generic than previous versions of the Oceanking. The older Oceanking watches were more stylized. The bezel was thinner, the markers were more elaborate, even the bezel font was a bolder choice. It looks like the old bezel font was Futura, which is a real style. These photos are from Watch Clicker, by the way. Great website, great video, stuff that makes me look like a kid with an iPhone 5. This generation, the current generation of the Oceanking, looks more like a Rolex Submariner, at least the bezel does. The 120 click bezel, which feels great and is pending some sort of patent on it. The bezel grips are an improvement pretty clearly. They look better and they feel better. Now again, I know from my Instagram DMs that this look is very intriguing for some people and it's a problem for others. Me? I prefer the more stylized look of the older watch. I like more character in our watch, but I've also had a lot of Rolex watches and I could get another if I wanted. Very few people are that lucky. And for $2,500, if they can get a watch that sort of reminds them of a Submariner that is high quality like this, well, that might just make a lot of sense. The only thing that to me is an obvious step backwards in the new design is that the bezel is no longer loomed. It has a pip, but the previous generation had loomed numerals and markers. People love a loomed bezel, and I am people. But isn't it great that one watch can work for one person and not for another? A difference of opinion about watches is the kind of debate that made this country great. I believe that there's even an article in the US Constitution which addresses helium escape valves and made them illegal for a time, and I, for one, would like to see this reinstated. I like Monta. I like what they've been up to since all those years ago in 2016. And I feel like I'm one of those fans of the brand. One that wants to see Monta succeed and is not afraid of being critical, and I think we should all be that way with the brands and the things that we like. Supportive and honest. And honestly, I think the new Oceanking is a really good watch. And honestly, I prefer the older design. And honestly, I'd be super happy to own this one. So I got that going for me, which is nice.